The Apollo moon landings have always been shrouded with conspiracy, and many conspiracy theorists refute the fact that man even landed on the moon. Join us as we look at the secret Apollo 20 mission that found an alien spaceship on the moon. Apollo missions. Apollo 11, the mission that put humans on the moon in July 1969, is the most famous of the Apollo space program's historic accomplishments in human space exploration. The program was started by NASA in the early 1960s. The Apollo program ended in December 1972 with the Apollo 17 mission, following a string of successful lunar landings. But a putative mission named Apollo 20 has been the subject of mystery and conjecture. Apollo 20 is still surrounded by mystery and controversy, unlike the other missions that are known. Apollo 20's background can be better grasped by placing it within the larger story of the Apollo program. NASA set out to accomplish scientific goals after the Apollo missions that would increase our knowledge of the moon and human capacity for spaceflight. Budget cuts, new priorities, and a decline in public interest after the first moon landings led to the program's pausing and eventual termination. Using the lunar roving vehicle, which enabled astronauts to explore longer distances on the lunar surface, was a defining feature of Apollo 15, 16, and 17. Missions that followed wanted to learn more about the moon's geological past. Hence, they focused on mountainous areas. But the United States and the Soviet Union's frenzied race to explore the moon had waned, and attention had moved on to other aspects of space, such as the expanding space shuttle program. According to NASA's timeline, Apollo 20 is not a valid mission. After the Apollo program's lunar missions ended in the late 1970s, rumors of Apollo 20 started to circulate. According to some claims, it was a clandestine operation that took place in 1976, with the stated goal of studying an extraterrestrial spaceship on the moon. These tales started circulating among groups of conspiracy theorists and UFO enthusiasts, where they quickly gained traction. The Apollo 20 mission conspiracy theory stated it was a joint effort between the Soviet Union and the United States to retrieve technology from an alien spaceship that had crashed. Conspiracy theorists assert that the operation was carried out under wraps, away from the scrutiny of the public and official congressional monitoring. Retired French astronaut AWP, who goes by initials P, published videos and what appeared to be documentation in 2007 stating that Apollo 20 landed on the moon near the Tycho crater. This became the most famous story of Apollo 20. These reports state that the spacecraft the astronauts found belonged to extraterrestrial beings and is thousands of years old. The narrative progressed with assertions that the spacecraft contained extraterrestrial technology, artifacts, and even the preserved bodies of extraterrestrial creatures. Photos captured during the mission that were supposedly meant to demonstrate these discoveries started making the rounds on social media, which added to the curiosity and suspicion. Both scientists and former NASA officials have expressed serious doubts about these claims. The narrative is widely believed by experts to be a fabrication or hoax rather than a legitimate piece of space exploration history due to inconsistencies, a lack of corroborating evidence, and the absence of official mission documents or data pertaining to Apollo 20. For a long time now, NASA has maintained that Apollo 20 never happened. The Apollo program ended with Apollo 17, and no additional lunar missions were planned or funded, according to official declarations. Since NASA has meticulously documented every trip, the fact that Apollo 20 is conspicuously absent from NASA records lends credence to the claim that it never took place. After Apollo 17, NASA also detailed the scientific, budgetary, and logistical reasons for terminating the Apollo program. A real effort was made to improve the space shuttle program so it could enter space in a more sustainable way. The political climate, financial limitations, and changing goals of the United States space exploration program rendered any continuation of the Apollo missions impossible. Apollo 17. As stated previously, the Apollo 17 mission was officially the last Apollo mission. It launched on December 7, 1972, and it was the most ambitious undertaking of NASA's Apollo program, representing a significant achievement in human space exploration. Apollo 17, with its legendary crew, remarkable scientific discoveries, and important advances to our understanding of the Moon, represents the apex of NASA's lunar exploration efforts. By the time Apollo 17 flew, NASA had completed 16 previous missions, resulting in a plethora of scientific knowledge and spaceflight expertise. Apollo 17 was planned not just to carry on this tradition, but also to push the limits of lunar exploration further than ever before. The primary goals of Apollo 17 were to conduct extensive geological studies of the Moon and collect samples from the lunar surface to further scientific understanding of the Moon's composition and history. The expedition focused on the Taurus-Littrow Valley, which is thought to include geological features indicating both volcanic activity and impact cratering, making it an attractive location for scientific research. The Apollo 17 crew consisted of Eugene Cernan, the mission's commander and the last person to walk on the Moon, Harrison Schmitt, lunar module pilot, geologist, and first scientist to land on the Moon, and Robert C. Gibbs, command module pilot, in charge of operating the command module in lunar orbit, who were all three experienced astronauts. On December 7, 1972, Apollo 17 launched from Florida's Kennedy Space Center on a Saturn V rocket. The spacecraft was made up of two modules, a command module named America and a lunar module named Challenger. After a successful transit to the Moon, the lunar module separated from the command module, and Cernan and Schmitt landed on the lunar surface on December 11, 1972. The Apollo 17 mission was famous for its extended stay on the lunar surface, when Cernan and Schmitt conducted about 75 hours of scientific experiments and geological studies. The astronauts completed 3 moonwalks, totaling approximately 22 hours of EVA. They collected a total of 243 pounds of lunar rock and soil samples, which were then returned to Earth for further study. The crew thoroughly explored geological structures, including the Taurus-Littrow Valley, which is distinguished by its distinctive panorama of old volcanic features and impact craters. Cernan and Schmitt's fieldwork contributed significantly to comprehending the Moon's evolutionary history. The Apollo 17 crew installed a variety of scientific instruments, including a lunar seismic profiling experiment, which monitored lunar surface activity, and a solar wind composition experiment, which assisted in studying solar wind interactions with the lunar surface. The presence of Harrison Schmitt, a professional geologist, represented a dramatic shift in astronaut selection for lunar missions. His expertise enabled a more detailed understanding of lunar geology, resulting in significant scientific findings. Cernan and Schmitt departed from the lunar surface onboard Challenger on December 14, 1972, rejoining Gibbs in orbit around the Moon. The crew then began their return to Earth, splashing down in the Pacific Ocean on December 19, 1972. NASA's Apollo program concluded with the successful mission of Apollo 17, leaving an indelible mark on space exploration history. The Apollo 17 mission not only marked the culmination of NASA's lunar exploration endeavors, but it also considerably improved our understanding of the Moon and planetary science. The samples gathered during the mission provided valuable data to researchers researching the Moon's geological history, surface processes, and prospective resources for future lunar exploration. Apollo 17's achievements sparked a renewed interest in space exploration and research among the public. Apollo missions canceled. The cancellation of the remaining Apollo missions following Apollo 17 was primarily impacted by several factors, including funding restrictions, changed objectives in space exploration, and the changing technology landscape. Following the Apollo program's success and the historic achievement of landing astronauts on the Moon, NASA faced increased pressure to justify the expenditures of further lunar missions. The Apollo program was an expensive enterprise, and by the early 1970s, budget cuts had been implemented as the United States faced economic issues such as inflation and increased public spending. As public enthusiasm waned after the initial excitement of the moon landings, Congress became less committed to funding future missions. Policymakers began to think about how government funding allotted to NASA could be used more effectively, especially given other pressing domestic challenges. NASA was performing a strategic evaluation of its space exploration goals when Apollo 17 successfully completed its mission in December 1972. The emphasis began to turn toward the development of new technologies and the investment in programs such as the Space Shuttle, which promised to deliver a reusable vehicle for a variety of missions, including satellite launches and future space exploration. NASA began prioritizing efforts that could lead to long-term human presence in space over additional moon landings. The creation of America's first space station, Skylab, demonstrated the agency's intention to prioritize long-duration stays in low Earth orbit, scientific research, and life sciences. Following Apollo 17, public enthusiasm for the Apollo program waned as America became more preoccupied with domestic matters such as the Vietnam War, civil rights movements, and energy crises. The cultural atmosphere of the early 1970s shifted priorities, and public opposition to future lunar missions influenced legislative support. Multiple successful moon landings, including Apollo 11, 12, 14, 15, and 16, resulted in a sense of accomplishment, making future moon missions less necessary. There was less universal support for spending government resources on additional moon landings, while many people were preoccupied with serious challenges on Earth. Following numerous successful Apollo missions, there was a growing awareness of the inherent risks of manned spaceflight. The tragic loss of the Apollo 1 crew in 1967 during a pre-launch test highlighted the perils of manned spaceflight, prompting increased safety standards and scrutiny of spacecraft design. With the focus turning to ensuring the safety and reliability of future flights, NASA began to evaluate the future of human space travel beyond the Moon, including Mars and other prospective destinations. The Apollo program had a lasting impact on space exploration, attaining huge goals and setting the framework for future space operations. Despite the cancellation of additional Apollo missions, knowledge learned about the Moon, breakthroughs in spacecraft technology, and human spaceflight experience continued to inform future initiatives. The shift to other aims, such as the development of the Space Shuttle and future programs beyond low Earth orbit, marked the beginning of a new era in human space exploration, building on the Apollo program's accomplishments. Apollo 20 mission. The big question remains, was there ever an Apollo 20 mission? Apparently, this reported expedition entailed the exploration of an ancient extraterrestrial vessel on the Moon, which piqued the interest of both UFO enthusiasts and conspiracy theorists. The Apollo 20 conspiracy idea gained steam in the early 2000s, aided by the internet and different media channels that promoted UFO-related content. Enthusiasts of alien hypotheses began to claim that in the mid-1970s, a clandestine mission called Apollo 20 was launched with the intention of exploring what was reported as an extraterrestrial spaceship discovered on the Moon's dark side. Proponents of this notion allege that NASA performed Apollo 20 in complete secret after the public-facing Apollo missions ended. According to the conspiracy, President Richard Nixon supposedly sanctioned the expedition, which included astronauts William Rutledge, Leona Snyder, and a mysterious female astronaut named Dr. Z. The Apollo 20 claims include numerous essential components that appeal to conspiracy theorists and UFO believers alike. Proponents claim Apollo 20 discovered a massive extraterrestrial craft on the Moon, which they describe to as the Rs-1. Rutledge's reported claims detail entering the craft, touring its interior, and dealing with structures resembling an advanced extraterrestrial society. Rutledge and other believers of the theory submitted images reportedly taken during the mission, claiming to depict both the extraterrestrial craft and several artifacts. However, critics have frequently pointed out that many of these photos lack credibility and may be disproven or explained using existing knowledge of lunar geology. The conspiracy got even more sensationalized when rumors surfaced that the Apollo 20 mission discovered two extraterrestrial bodies on board the craft, one male and one female, implying a science fiction-like plot. Rutledge stated that the bodies were preserved using modern technology. The conspiracy narrative revolves around the idea that the United States government, specifically NASA, aggressively concealed the existence of the extraterrestrial craft and the discoveries made during the alleged Apollo 20 mission. This assertion capitalizes on widespread skepticism of government entities and agencies, reinforcing the impression that powerful groups withhold critical information from society. Despite its allure, the Apollo 20 conspiracy hypothesis is met with widespread skepticism from scientists and space specialists. The lack of official documents, paperwork, or reliable witnesses proving the reality of Apollo 20 is a major impediment to the theory's credibility. NASA's archives are immense, and any extra mission involving human spaceflight would have been meticulously documented, but no such proof exists. The circumstances underlying Rutledge's assertions and the alleged artifacts were investigated and found to be lacking in scientific rigor. The described images were created through alteration or misidentification of known lunar features, and the claims of superior alien technology have not been proven. Even UFO enthusiasts are divided on the Apollo 20 scenario. Some people dispute the narrative, emphasizing the importance of solid evidence and expressing dissatisfaction with frivolous assertions that can derail important conversations concerning mysterious aerial occurrences. William Rutledge. William Rutledge's name is frequently associated with the supposed Apollo 20 mission. This mission, which NASA has never confirmed or acknowledged, is alleged to have featured a secret voyage to the moon in the 1970s to investigate an ancient alien spaceship. Rutledge's accusations, combined with his credentials as a former Air Force commander, have sparked great interest and doubt about the Apollo program and its alleged secret agenda. His history, however, has raised some questions about the credibility of his claims, as official documents do not support his links with NASA or any involvement in genuine Apollo missions. The Apollo program, which began in 1961, planned to place humans on the moon and safely return them to Earth. It accomplished this goal with Apollo 11 in 1969 and continued with future missions until Apollo 17 in 1972. According to the official record, Apollo 17 was the last crewed flight to the moon, with no missions numbered 18, 19, or 20. Rutledge sprang to prominence online in the early 2000s, claiming that Apollo 20 was a covert mission carried out in 1976, after the officially recognized Apollo program had concluded. Rutledge said that the trip was to study a spacecraft discovered on the moon that he claimed was of extraterrestrial origin. According to Rutledge, the major goal of Apollo 20 was to study a gigantic, abandoned alien craft on the moon. He described entering the spacecraft and discovering unusual artifacts indicating superior technology and a possibly long-lost alien civilization. His descriptions also conjured up images of other things and structures that he believed were part of the alien ship. One of the most startling features of Rutledge's story is the assertion that the astronauts discovered preserved alien bodies within the vessel. He claimed that one of the remains was female and in a state comparable to mummification, which he discussed extensively in his films and interviews. The central premise of Rutledge's story is that the United States government engaged in a cover-up of the true findings of the Apollo missions, particularly Apollo 20. He said that there was a deliberate effort to keep this knowledge hidden from the public, allowing the mystery of UFOs and extraterrestrial life to endure. The scientific world has usually viewed Rutledge's claims with suspicion. Critics point to a lack of supporting evidence and reputable documentation establishing the presence of Apollo 20. Rutledge's reported images and artifacts have also come under investigation, with many determining that they are either edited or misinterpreted lunar phenomena. While definitive proof backs up Rutledge's claims, his account demonstrates the public's continued fascination with UFOs and extraterrestrial life. The Apollo 20 conspiracy highlights how stories of government secrecy and hidden truths may pique the public's interest, driving conjecture and debate over space travel. As humanity struggles to understand its place in the universe, Rutledge's story serves as a reminder of the complexity of truth and belief in science, exploration, and the unknown. Mona Lisa. The term Mona Lisa on the moon refers to a common myth and conspiracy theory circulated among UFO enthusiasts and conspiracy theorists about a supposedly discovered image of an alien woman on the lunar surface. According to the story, this image was caught in photographs taken during lunar expeditions, specifically the Apollo missions. The story implies that astronauts or space expeditions, notably the Apollo missions, took photographs of structures and faces on the moon during their travels. Some people claim to glimpse a figure matching Leonardo da Vinci's famed painting Mona Lisa, which led to the use of that title to describe the alleged alien woman. The concept comes from the phenomena known as pareidolia, in which observers see familiar shapes or patterns, frequently human-like faces, in random objects or images. When studying lunar images, fans frequently point out numerous aspects that they interpret as faces or figures, such as this alleged alien woman. Over time, the Mona Lisa on the moon myth has gained traction in conspiracy theory circles, with some claiming that these images are proof of extraterrestrial life or advanced civilizations that formerly inhabited the moon. Some theorists believe that government entities have concealed these facts to hide awareness of alien life. The myth of the Mona Lisa on the moon reflects a popular interest in extraterrestrial life and the notion that humans are not alone in the universe. It has been featured in forums, blogs, and films about UFOs and lunar exploration. Throughout popular culture, references to alien life, unusual finds on the moon, and the prospect of hidden truths have inspired many works of fiction and nonfiction, adding to the attraction of notions such as the Mona Lisa. Experts in space travel and photography point out that allegations about the Mona Lisa, or similar alien figures, lack reliable scientific data. And while the story catches the imagination and piques interest in extraterrestrial life, such claims must be approached with skepticism. Whether there was a real Apollo 20 mission or not, I'm convinced NASA keeps numerous hot topics shrouded in secrecy. Do you believe the Apollo 17 mission was the last one? Or do you believe William Rutledge's allegations about Apollo 20? Why don't you let us know in the comments below? Well, that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give us a like and let us know in the comments what you think. Check out our other videos and subscribe to be part of the fun. Click on the notification icon so you can see our new videos as soon as they're uploaded. Thank you for watching and see you next time.